Hello students, welcome to Mr. Martin and Mr. Walter's flipped lesson. This is absolutism in Russia.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, you want to be filling this out in the part of your packet that deals with Russia. And for your... Are we going to go back to the map, Mr. Walter? For your... Thank you. And for your just your geographic location, we have talked about absolutism in Spain over here. We have talked about absolutism in France here. We have talked about absolutism in England over here. And now we're going to jump all the way up to our friends up in the north, the Ruskies, the Russians, up here.
As you notice, we don't have absolutism in England, or I'm sorry, we don't have absolutism in Italy or Germany because of all the various micronations, and there was no one absolute ruler. Now, absolutism in Russia. Let's do kind of a little recap on Russia because we really haven't talked about it at all. All right, so here's some backstory on Russia. From the 1200s to the 1700s, Russia was isolated from Western Europe. Russia is big. It's really, really big. And so a lot of the Russian cities missed out on things like the Crusades, the Renaissance, exploration, the Reformation. So Russia was really heavily influenced by the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Byzantine Empire, which was that other part of Rome that had split off a very long time ago. And Ivan IV, or as he went down in history as Ivan the Terrible, was a mean and cruel leader that kept his citizens under control. And so when we get to this time period, Russia is essentially, in some ways, still in the Middle Ages. They have serfs, they have lords, they have a feudal system.
All right, a couple things to remember. Russia, for whatever reason, is always going to be about 10 to 20 years behind Europe for the reasons that we're going to talk about. Russia's big problem. All right, we said at the very beginning of the year, geography sets the tone for winners and losers. All right, although Russia has a very nice long latitude of a country, it's also situated farther to the north than Europe, if you've noticed. Okay, so it's going to be a lot cooler, and the Russians don't have access to a warm water port. Now, what does that mean? That doesn't mean they have access to a tropical port where the water's warm, but they don't have access to a port that is free of ice all year long. If you guys have been paying attention to current events, down in the South Pole, there's a whole bunch of people that couldn't get rescued because the ship couldn't get through because the ice was so thick. Ernest Shackleton ran into that same problem. We talked about him with exploration. Getting back to the Russians, they can't trade if their ports are all blocked up with ice. So that's going to be a huge problem. Unlike Spain, France, and England that are on the Atlantic coast that have access to seaports year-round, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Now, when we get to Russia, the first person who really comes along who's going to change things his name is Peter, and he will go down in history as Peter the Great. Now, here's his goal. It's to bring Russia into the mainstream of European civilization. Peter, when he's younger, takes an 18-month tour of England and the Netherlands. And while he's traveling, he sees some amazing things. And when he goes back to Russia, he realizes that Russia was behind in both technology and in culture and education, and so he does his part to really bring Russia up to speed and to be more Western. And one of the things that he's known for is he forces the nobility to adopt the ways of the Western Europeans. He creates a new capital city known as St. Petersburg, which will be called the window to the West, and he adopts the French tax idea, which was tax everyone and tax everyone heavily except the kings and the nobles.
All right, notice, too, he named the city after himself, St. Petersburg. All right, that's going to take us to a woman called Catherine the Great. Catherine the Great, everyone thinks, was married to Peter the Great, but she was not. Okay, she comes a little bit later, and initially she had the idea to free the serfs from Russia. All right. However, after she sees the peasants revolt during the 1500s in Europe, she changes her mind. She doesn't want to give that power to those people. Okay? So as a result, in order to hold on to her power, she actually destroys the rights and She destroys the rights of the serfs and gives more power to the noble class. That's going to be really important for you guys to understand. And so one of the ways that she kind of maintains her power base, okay? The big thing with Catherine is she expands her power and secures, finally, a warm water port in the Black Sea.
So you'll see, students, that right up here in the Gulf of Finland is where St. Petersburg is, but that does freeze over at some points during the year. And so down here in the Black Sea is where she finally conquers land and secures a port where Russia can trade all year round.
Guys, notice geographically where this is located. It's right in the Middle East, right in the heart of the crossroads of civilization that we talked about. So going back to that theme that we talked about so diligently. All right. If we've gone too fast, you can replay this broadcast, but please make sure you have Absolutism in Russia completed as part of your flipped classroom packet.